Kags, social entrepreneur. Welcome to the JSO interview.
Thank you very much. We brought together a number of artists from around Africa to come and perform this song called Africa Arise, which is partly a message to the African Union to say to them, young people are ready to be involved in the running of African affairs, and it is time for them to sort of be brought onto the table.
A timely message, because we have been running a series of interviews around this general theme of the African Union's 50th birthday. Where do you, Al Kags, come into the picture?
Well, I'm involved with the YMCA. And the YMCA is an organization that started out as Young Men Christian Association, but has since evolved into being an organization for young people, and it's actually the largest organization of young people around Africa. And the YMCA has a program called Subject to Citizen, which moves young people from merely being spectators in looking at how their governance is run to actually participating and being involved in the everyday running of their affairs.
Curious that you should say that it's dealing with a continent-wide program.
Yes.
When the African Union perhaps ought to know that it's well nigh impossible to move freely within African borders. It's easier for me to go to London or Paris or New York than to end up in Gabon. So I'm asking, why preach a message of inclusiveness when all the doors to the youth are in fact shut in reality?
But how do you get them open? The way you get them open is that you get for those doors to be open, and they'll open, you know, creak by creak, minute by minute sort of thing.
So what are the modalities of this Subject to Citizen program? Perhaps I'm cutting you short. If perhaps you'll answer my questions in such fashion that I won't give that dismissive remark.
Yes.
What are you up to?
The Subject to Citizen program, as I said, is about bringing young people from being merely spectators to being participants.
Right.
And you do this in a couple of ways. Number one is economic renaissance. You begin to get young people to actually drive their economic well-being. They learn how to do business. They learn how to participate in. They learn what the stock market does. They learn how to save. They learn how to manage their affairs from an economic perspective.
So in realistic terms, you're running a school that will teach me how to play the stock
or
market.
an incubator of sorts.
Right.
One that provides knowledge, but also provides the resources needed, that also provides some direction, some mentorship, that sort of thing.
So Incubator, I see a physical structure, and on the wall there's a slogan, a notice board that says, Subject to Citizen Program, enroll if you wish to know more about economics and business.
You know, the interesting thing is that for a long time an incubator was actually a space, but now it's a virtual space. It's one of those things where you you track somebody's life and you provide them with the mentorship and you provide them with the resources. The way young people are doing business nowadays, in some cases, doesn't require them to be in a physical office. It requires them to be in a studio, and sometimes it requires for them just to be at home and do something over there. And all of these things you want to sort of enable. But more importantly, I think, is the fact that you go a little bit further on the program and you get them to be socially aware. You get them to know the value of being a taxpayer and getting a PIN number. You get them to understand the role that NSSF plays in their lives. Just last week I was in the coast, and I had a very interesting experience meeting with some young people who they only have an ID card, and that's all they thought they ever needed to be a Kenyan. They didn't have a PIN number, they didn't have NSSF, they didn't have NHIF, and worse yet, they didn't know the value of having them. So you start speaking to someone and their eyes literally open up with a new awareness of the fact that by being I cannot own a piece of land because I don't have a PIN number, for example, and that they begin to understand the relationship between taxes and the road that they enjoy, or the healthcare center that they enjoy, and that sort of thing.
Right. I think because we have so little time in this particular forum, I shan't be rude by sort of putting all the questions that come to you to mind. I'd like you to evoke all the pillars, and I'll note down my responses so that by the time we've finished, at least you've evoked all of them.
Okay.
So one was an economic renaissance.
Yes.
Two might be
social awareness.
Right. Explain.
And the social awareness is what I just was explaining, that, you know, it's about young people getting to know how to participate socially in everything. And by socially, I don't mean going out and having a drink, but even in terms of how do taxes relate to, you know, healthcare, to education, to that sort of thing. How do they participate in formulating the education agenda of the country? Most people do not see themselves as having a stake in figuring out the education of their children beyond just taking them to school. So these are some of the things that you try and get young people to do. The third one I get excited by is called transformative masculinity. Now, you know, John, that a lot of young men are somewhat left out in the whole personal development space, and as a result they've sort of fell out, and they're doing some horrible things. Some of them drinking too much, some of them doing drugs, some of them, I mean, you hear of abhorrent things that have been done by young men, and a lot of it is because of the fact that not enough care has been taken to sort of develop the young man so that they can be a responsible, driven person. Now, the transformative masculinity bit of Subject to Citizen is one that focuses a little bit on getting the young man to be a responsible participant in you know, running the country, in supporting their families, whether they are the head of the family or even where they're the son within the family. Get them to actually be an active and positive influence in people's lives.
Right, so is that it? Three agendas, is that enough, or is there another one?
There's one more.
Okay.
The final one is participation.
Right.
We want young people to participate actively in the governance, the everyday life of Africa in general. And it is under this that the video that we just watched was about. It's about saying that there are structures that exist that young people could actually participate in, including in the African Union. And so it is actually under the participation arm that the young people are actually advocating for space within the African Union.